Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. That's a loud introduction. Thank you, Mr. Borges, as the chairman or chairperson of the day. Honorable President and CEO of Putra School, Mr. Alpha Saleh. Our Honorable Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Sulaiman, Dr. Razman, Sharul, my fellow colleagues at Putra, and also our distinguished panelists, and not to forget the students of Putra School and prospective students perhaps who are currently in this hall. My name is Wan Ahmad Faisal, Wan Ahmad Kamal. I'm not sure, some of you might have came across some of my writings in the internet, but here today I will be explaining a very important topic to all those who study or want to become businessmen or someone successful in their professional career. Because why? Putra, being a truly businessman school, is not working in silo or in vacuum. We live in a world where the reality is colorful and challenging. So my topic today is very much, it's like a TED Talk, I have to walk away. It's going to be a very serious topic because it involves the future of our civilization. Not just for ourselves, but our future of our children and grandchildren. A glimpse into the post-World War II financial and political architecture. What I mean by architecture here is not the building, the design drawings, but the system that enwraps, encapsulates day-to-day activities of business, economy, politics, and even culture. So that's what I'm referring to when I mention about architecture. I'm sure you are familiar with the problems and challenges that you've seen in the picture above. What is that? IS or ISIS, Islamic State, currently ran havoc in the Middle East. And some said that they are coming to our shore. Or you have glimpsed through some news regarding Ukraine. The civil war that's still not ended yet, at the border of Russia. Or you might come across reading news every day with regard to the tragedy that Greece currently facing with regard to their debt, sovereign debt in Eurozone. And also in our own news, current local news, regarding the possible Trans-Partnership Pacific Agreement, trade, with the US as the proposer, and also the other regions, or the countries in our region. And perhaps with regard to the crisis in the South China Sea, the Spratly Islands. The Chinese government is building a lot of artificial islands to reclaim their territory, their water territory, nautical territory. Are these events unrelated, unconnected, and nothing to do with business school? My answer is no. All these events have everything to do with business school, especially your human governance, subject taught by Professor Alpha. Yeah, I'm sure you came across some of the contents, but I will bring you into a greater journey to understand why this thing happened and why they are connected to each other and why they are here to stay for a quite possible future. Let's go to the finance, how our world works today. As you can see, in the world today, as said by George Orwell in The Animal Farm, all animals are equal. but some animals are more equal than the others. So the world are not an egalitarian place. In the current system that we have today, some of the states serve or are considered as the core nations of the world. They are the linchpin of the world system. Who are they? America, the US, Britain, France, the veto nation, I would say, yeah, in the UN. Besides that, there are also those who are periphery to the core, which are rising economy or those who are developed already, such as the European countries. And besides that also, there are those who are the core to the periphery, yeah, which are the developing countries. Malaysia included, Indonesia, South Africa, India, and last but not least, our poor brothers, the periphery of the periphery, the African nations. These are the Bangladesh. These are the countries that are considered periphery, in the periphery. How do they act or interrelate to each other? By trade, by economy, by political system, internationally. So, this system works in like a division labor. For the core countries, the periphery to the core would provide products or export their services and products to the core countries. Yeah? Because US is the largest market for business. We all know about that. And also for the core of the periphery, like our country, we provide our products and services in order to for our trade to those core countries, periphery and the core, US and such. And while the rest of the rich in resources but poor in capital, like African nations, they serve all of that. We depend on some of their oils and products, but they are rich in resources. But there's a common thing that links these four centers of economy or business. They are what we call the elites, or those who run the economy, the business people. They interlink with each other by trade, by cooperation. They provide services to each other. These are the ones who generate the economy, the corporations. And they are the main stakeholders in maintaining the stability of the system. On top of that, their relationships are not in vacuum. They are situated in a larger framework, what we call global capitalism. Yeah? The modern economic system that we are having today, like for example, why when we trade between Indonesia and Malaysia, we need to trade in US dollar, not in rupiah or ringgit? The answer lies here in the system. The international system that encapsulates the whole relationship, where all nations must abide to it. But there's a question that we should ask. If everybody provides their resources, their products to the largest market, the core nation like America, Britain, and France, what in return, especially the US, provide to us? Guess what? Is the US dollar. Why? Because we all know US dollar is the international reserve currency for all nations in the world. Without US dollar, you cannot develop your country. You cannot trade internationally. You cannot do business with your neighboring countries, even. So, this is where the system, or how the relationship being defined. The interdependency between us with the periphery, with the core, are based on economic interests, partially, on top of politics. And we must understand how this thing being created in the first place. Suddenly, I mean, I don't have freedom to choose my currency to trade with my neighbors, even in Indonesia or Singapore? What is the reason or why we cannot? For example, I want to buy oil from Kuwait in euro or yen, but that is not possible in the current system. Because why? This system actually was designed by the winners of the World War II. Who? The United States of America and the Allies. It happened because of this historical event called the Bretton Woods Conference. This is where, or this is how the world became what it is today. Through this eventful conference, US dollar became the fixed exchange rate for all the national currencies. And it governs the trade that we have today. Why we are having, for example, weak ringgit today, why we are experiencing increase of roti canai and teh tarik, it has to do, something to do with the fundamentals on how US dollar being used and serve the international market. This picture is Henry Dexter White and also John Maynard Keynes. If you're an economic student, you might know Keynes, right? US and Britain. Basically, before the war ended, before the Nazi was defeated, they were already talking between Britain and the US how and we could rebuild Europe, who has been ravished by the war. So what they need to do is to stabilize the economy. They need to stabilize back the currency. So US, being the winner and not affected physically by the war, had the upper hand in the conference, in the conference to decide that US dollar will remain, become the international currency for trading, where US dollar was pegged to gold. An ounce of gold back then, in 1944, equivalent to $35. So once Malaysia received independence from British, automatically we became part of the international system. I've written a piece in Malaysian Reserve, maybe later I would share it in the Putra business website, how Malaysia, even after the independence, right after independence, we were already part of the international system. And this decision was not made democratically, because it was not negotiated by our forefathers, Abdul Rahman and the rest. It was designed as part of the decolonization process. The British transferred their economic interest of ruling Malaysia indirectly to the United States via the international government organization called World Bank and IMF that was created part of the Bretton Woods Conference. So that's how we became part of the system. But then, how are you going to rebuild Europe after the war? So part of after the Bretton Woods Conference, the US came up with this plan called Marshall Plan. Because Europe was ravaged by war, and Germany was defeated, Japan was defeated. So they need to stabilize back the economy in Europe. So what they did, they proposed what we call Marshall Plan to restart back the economy in Europe. So they pumped a lot of aid packages to Europe. This is part what we call dollarization program. Yeah? Because you have created an international currency, you need to find a market for the currency to be used and in the business. So before you can do that, the economy must be stabilized. Hence, you give some money first. You provide aid, tractors, food, and so many things to Europe. And Europe became stronger after World War II. The economy became stabilized, and they trade with US dollar. And they are part of what we call now OECD, Organization of Economic and Cooperation and Development. Yeah, in Europe, that's part of the impact of OECD. So, the US dollar was the supreme currency, and that made US, till today, the most powerful nation on earth. Why? Because they could afford, because the demand of dollar is so huge, being used every day, in all parts of the world, in all forms of trades. US dollar reigns supreme, especially in energy, oil. But suddenly, along the way, the Bretton Woods Agreement came to a halt. Why? Because US was caught in the quagmire of Vietnam War. Then the President, Richard Nixon, officially announced the end of Bretton Woods, and that's where the new, what we call petrodollar system, arose from the ashes of Bretton Woods. Why? Because once President Nixon ended Bretton Woods Agreement, US dollar was no longer being pegged to the gold. Now, US dollar were printed in a very huge quantity and flooded the market. What happened to the goods? What happened to the currency? The currency became devalued. Too much money chasing too few goods. Lah banyak sangat duit nak kejar barang sikit. Jadi siapa jadi mahal? Bukannya barang tu mahal, duit tu jadi murah. Itu bahasa Melayu je lah. Sebab ini technical. I know it's technical a bit, but try to follow. And if you could not follow, you can review with Pro Alpha in a human governance class, inshallah. Alright? So, what happened? How would US want to make sure they still remain, or US dollar remain, the currency of choice for world trading? They need to figure out ways to replace Bretton Woods system. By what? By going to Saudi. After Yom Kippur War with Israel, the Arab World War fighting with Israel in 1917, Nixon sent his National Security Advisor, the Grand Master, Henry Kissinger, to meet King Faisal to negotiate. Hey, Saudi, let's make a deal. You make sure US dollar will become the only currency for our oil trading with the OPEC members, the oil producing nations. In return, the US will provide security guarantee to the Saudi. Why? Because there's a threat. You know, in Middle East currently is so chaotic. Iran, Saudi, Yemen, the Shi'i and Sunni conflict. Of course, the religion is one of the causes, but not the only cause for the war in Middle East. There are other causes, and most importantly, economic interests that you can understand after this. So what US did through Kissinger, they pegged US dollar to oil. Now, US dollar is no longer being backed by gold, but by oil. And oil being the most sought after commodity in this planet, means US dollar became supreme again. Even though they have printed so many paper bills. And due to this reason, US dollar, even though they are the largest debtor nation in the world, trillions of debt, they can never go bankrupt. Why? Simple. People have confidence with dollar, because dollar being pegged to oil and being used in international trade. Right? Because no country in the world do not require oil as part of their economic growth. Yeah? This is the most basic resource in economy and business. Without oil, you cannot develop. You cannot industrialize. So that's what happened. And currently, you can see from the diagram or the picture above, you can see billions of US dollar being transferred out to all nations in the world, especially oil producing nations, because they use that currency to trade. And US, since US no longer has backed their currency to gold, they can print the dollar for not a cost. You just print anything you want. I mean, because the demand is still there, you can print. That's why you have debt, huge debt. And the currency will not become experiencing this what we call shock, because the demand is still there. That's how powerful US dollar is. And this thing cannot happen without US have a degree of control in the international political system. If you have money, but without political power, that is not possible for you to run the world, or even your country. You need both mechanisms. So what US did after the World War II, part of the Bretton Woods, they created the international governmental organizations. For example, the World Bank, the IMF. These are all based in Washington, where US is the major shareholder. World Trade Organization, Bank on International Settlements. Not only that, they control the finance, but also they chair many important regional and global cooperation institutions, G8, G20. There are so many conferences going around the world, Accord and everything, Davos and everything. These are part of the means to maintain the system. And also part of the way to maintain the dominance is through military. We have NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that controls and manages the defense of the Europeans. After the World War II, they were afraid of Germany became Nazi again. They make sure Germany, their defense depends on NATO. So Germany cannot militarize. Even Japan cannot militarize. Apart, because after the World War II, these two nations, who are being hated by many other nations in Europe because of their World War II antics, they are being controlled politically through agreements and treaties. The economy and politics and defense are subjugated under international conventions, like NATO. And also the famous Blue Helmet of the United Nations. Hence, we must understand the supreme status of US dollar is not simply economic. It is part of what we call the hard power, part of national security of the United States of America. If dollar being threatened economically, politics must come and step into and resolve it. And last resort is to go for military excursion. And hence why we have war against terrorism, war to topple Gaddafi, war to topple Saddam Hussein, and possible war with Iran, because dollar are being threatened. The politics of post-World War II. Because we must understand, dollar is part of the world system, and those who threaten the supreme status of dollar must be managed and contained. US foreign policy is highly dependent on geopolitics. That's why they are everywhere in the world today. They open their bases in Africa, in Asia, not in Malaysia, thank God yet, but in Philippines they have. Why? Because they know currently, whatever conflict that we see in Ukraine, in Middle East, in Africa, because it is part of reaction, part of containment of Russia and China. And that this kind of story is not being told in the news, because you don't go deeper to the reason why the aggression occurred, or why there are so many flashpoints in the map today. The reason being is this: because after World War II, there's what we call Mackinder theory, proposed by Halford Mackinder, of a geographer from England, an English geographer. He said that those who rule East Europe rule what we call the heartland. Those who rule the heartland rules the world island. Those who rule the world island rule the world. Who's in the heartland? Russia. Russia. That's why he is the bad guy now. Right? Putin is being, yeah, he has his own share of mistakes and problems, corruptions, but because he will that geographical strategic asset, which is going to threaten the dominance of the US dollar because the sheer number of energy minerals located at the heartland. But again, you will ask me, why, if they were having problems with the heartland, with Russia, why do they not fight against the Russians straight away? Why must they create havoc in Ukraine, in Africa, in South China Sea? Simply because, according to Speakman, a Dutch-American geographer, who worked in Yale before, professor, he said that before the heartland can be contained, you must contain the rimland first. The rimlands are the periphery nations, including us. South China Sea, Africa, Middle East. Hence, the conflicts existed in Middle East is because of this. Part of the policy to contain the rimland so that the heartland are being cut off from the rimland. Okay, so you understand the conflicts are not because of ISIS alone or Sunni Shia fighting each other. No, not only that. There are other reasons. Policy, part of the policy. What is the policy? I will prove to you this policy. This is the Bible of containment, written by National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski. Yeah, he was an advisor to Jimmy Carter before. This is the Bible that you can buy in Kinokuniya if you want to. And you can see whatever he has written is now being played out in Eastern Europe. Simple as that, right? Another proof, a news piece. Last month, I think, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew said it clearly that, you see, keep IMF and World Bank instruments of US policy, Treasury Chief urged Congress. IMF and World Bank is part of US policy to control or to maintain the hegemony of dollar. All right? So it is not an independent bank for all. And also, according to Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, TPP deal is as important as new aircraft carrier. We are part of TPP deal negotiation currently. And according to Secretary of Defense, this TPP deal, an economic deal, is as important as aircraft carrier. Their analogy, ya, dia buat persamaan hubung kait yang tak masuk akal kalau kita tengoklah. Ekonomi dengan military, but that's the reality. Hard power. Economy is hard power for US. So whatever deal, whatever business deal, currency, US dollar being upheld because of this. To maintain the hegemony of US dollar. Because why? If we start to become less dependent on US dollar, like what China is trying to do now, this is an advertisement in Bangkok, right outside of Bangkok's airport. China is promoting yuan or renminbi as the future world currency. This is why South China Sea is boiling. Because China, with the large reserve that they have on US dollar, they have the means to develop other less developed nations who cannot get US dollar from US itself. So they are going to Africa, they are opening new banks like AIIB that US quite late joining them, while the rest of the world are joining in drove. So the new challenges coming from Russia and China, major in group. So, for example, BRICS, yeah? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, also a political regional organization like Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Eurasian Economic Community, and also CSTO, yeah, of Russia. So these are the new institutions that try to challenge the post-World War II institutions like UN, World Bank, IMF, World Trade Organization, and the rest. This is the current state of our world, unipolar world, where, as you can see, the center of this world is United States of America, by sheer virtue of their having US dollar as a supreme international currency and foreign reserve for all nations in the world. And now, they are being challenged to a multipolar world championed by Russia and China, where the future would be like this. This integration of unipolarity of US at the center of the world, where we are going back to pre-World War, or pre-European colonialism actually, where every nation has their rights and freedom to choose to trade with whom, to use what currency, and to prosper according to their own method, culture, and humanistically. That's important. Hence why human governance is very important, because it will keep us ready to become part of this community in the future. No other business school, as far as I know, has that vision to be part of this community, which will be a reality. Because why? Because China and Russia is propelling this effort. And also all the nations are gravitating towards these two countries. All, even our country. So before that can happen, definitely there will be conflicts, wars, and that will disrupt our business and economy. But this is part not of our interest as students and also lecturers, but the politicians, leaders of our countries and the nations. So last but not least, these are the reasons why the conflicts occur and why business are being impacted by such conflicts. So I end my presentation with thank you. Hopefully I could hear some of the questions from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Faisal. Our next speaker is Emil Durelli. She's the e-learning coordinator at the Academic and Planning Training Unit of ESL Language Centers in Malaysia. Today she'll be speaking to you on educational transformation toward digital learning in the current era. Originally from Germany, Emil has been living in Malaysia since 1992. After she graduated from the university, she came to Malaysia and has been in the ESL field ever since. Her work experience includes teaching German and translating articles from German to English and vice versa. She also worked as a trainer, thank you, at Brickfield's Asia College for LTTC, London, their diploma program, and as a full-time English lecturer at KBU for intensive English programs and part-time at TESOL. Besides that, she's taught first language English at a private institution to secondary students aspiring to obtain O-level certificates from Cambridge. She's worked at ELS language centers in Petaling Jaya and Subang Jaya. She became a senior instructor at ELS, and her duties included developing corporate training programs, including TEFL and IELTS courses, in addition to training many teachers. She gained vast knowledge in ESL teaching using widely accepted and recommended techniques. She's presented a paper at MIC ELT 2004, Teaching Grammar to EFL ESL Learners Effectively Through Various Techniques and Student-Centered Activities. Currently, she's part of the Academic Planning and Testing Unit as an e-learning coordinator, and I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Amy